This is a video looking through the window on my 55-gallon drum barrel in my aquaponics system. It's one of two barrels. This is the only one I put a window in so far. This one has goldfish and fathead minnows in it, and the water looks a bit brackish because I have put some compost tea in there. But the fish, as you can tell by looking at their pectoral fins, they seem to be loving it. These guys are probably anywhere from 3 to 5 inches depending on the fish. Alright, so I used a 1/4 inch thick Lexan polycarbonate plexiglass for making this window. I probably should have gone for 1/8 of an inch. The 1/4 of an inch was so stiff that it actually changed the shape of the barrel when I started bolting things down. But I'll make a video on how I did that later. As you can tell, the fish are loving being in the brackish water that I've made with compost tea so that my plants can grow in compost tea along with the fish nutrients. And the goldfish are definitely loving it. Let me bring this up here. You can see where the water is coming in. I've actually set it so I can create a current inside the barrel, which I hear that fish love a gentle current. And this barrel is round, so it'll make a nice round smooth current going through. And I have a 1-inch solids lift overflow right there with a cap on the end of it down at the bottom that I've drilled a bunch of little holes into so the fish can't get up in there. Make sure you do that. I did pull a fish through the system once and saw it laying on the rocks. It was fine actually. It had only been there for a few minutes because I just turned it on. But yeah, just make sure you put a cap on the end of that. And I recommend using the 1-inch. I did originally start with a 1/8 of an inch size pipe, or a 1/2 inch size pipe, and that caused issues. I actually made the water level in the barrel rise a bit, and it restricted my amount of water flow I could bring into the system. So now that I have 1/2 inch pipe bringing water in, I can open the valve up fully and adjust the water to however I see fit, and my 1-inch overflow handles it just fine. Even if it was to have a fish or anything clog up the end of the pipe, half of it, it would still flow just fine. As you can see, the kids have been decorating down there in the bottom. I got a little toy submarine, and I actually have a little small potting basket with some fish pea gravel down there because goldfish love feeding off the bottom. I'll see them get down there in groups at certain times of the day, and they're all pecking at the rocks. It seems to raise their quality of life quite a bit, and the kids love watching it and everything. I got all these fish for about 12 cents each at the pet store, which is a pretty good deal. Just make sure I got ones that had markings on them so the kids could give them names and whatnot. And I look forward to these guys growing quite a bit. Alright, one little tip for getting the water to jet out of the end of the pipe like this. I actually had issues getting it to do that. I figured it would do like this to begin with, but instead it would kind of just glob out of there, and it was a solid, perfectly smooth little stream. And you don't want that. You kind of want to agitate the water a little bit to get the surface tension broken, to get the water to bring in oxygen, you know. So, and plus it was not having the force it is right now to make the current in the barrel like I wanted. So I figured out all I had to do was up here in the elbow is I drilled a little hole to let some air in, and it broke the suction that was slowing the water down, and now it pulls air in through there and makes it nice and fast all the way down and unrestricted. Here's the outside of the same barrel, view from the outside. As you can see, I was planning on putting on a second window and having the solids lift overflow come out up here somewhere, but since I changed the shape of the barrel, made it flat, after I'd cut everything and measured it out precisely, the old window no longer fit that I was going to put here because the barrel is now flat on the side. So I may eventually actually take this old window off, get a thinner piece, make the new piece fit that, and then come in with a thinner piece also. We'll see about that though. Of course, I would have to make there's a little piece of pipe in there. I'd have to extend it up to here to make the top of the snorkel so it doesn't siphon all the water out of the barrel. Let's see here. As you can see, I have the goldfish poo going into these 2 5-gallon buckets that I've wrapped with the oiled bubble wrap insulation that I got from Lowe's. The water level in those buckets is about even with this pipe here, so it's about 4 inches or so below the top of the gravel. So it's going to be a constant flood, and I can service it down here in the bottom, and the valve coming out the bottom. But the fish poo will be going directly in there, and I'm going to put some heavy feeders in here like tomatoes. And then for the tomatoes, I'm going to have them growing up this trellis, and I'll probably put some yo-yo type strings here. And then only about the last 4 feet of the plant that's growing is what you need to have the flower and then the fruit. And as the plant grows, I can prune the little limbs off, and then the ripe tomatoes, and pull it down and give it more room to grow. So it should be good to go in here. And for my uppermost barrel that's sitting here, almost near the roof of my greenhouse, I do have a little. These used to be olive barrels, so they had little built-in basket things for the roof that went underneath the cap there. So it's perfect, so I can put fish in there and they won't jump out or anything. But I'm planning on not putting a window in that barrel. I'm going to put the fish in that I want to eat in there, so that we don't become attached to them, and so my kids won't become attached to them when we put them on a plate. Also, the inside of this barrel also has a solids lift overflow 1-inch pipe coming from the bottom. It should be about 220 gallons of water per hour coming through this 55-gallon drum. They recommended minimum flow rate is going to be 55 gallons for 1 water change per hour, so that's plenty. And I'm actually going to set the water coming up to where it's going to swirl that as well at some point. I just got to figure out how to mount that up there. Alright, so here is my sump tank slash fingerling tank slash deep water culture tank. It's going to have my lettuce wraps and whatnot growing out of the base here. I built this. I literally just built a wooden frame and bought a pond liner from Home Depot and lined it and padded it on the inside slash it's more insulation, and then also put wood on the outside for more insulation. And that's about all this is. This was actually the hardest thing I've built in the greenhouse, and I would not recommend doing it. I'd recommend just getting another 55-gallon drum and probably digging a hole and putting a sump tank in the ground. And then if you do that, since everything drains by gravity back to the sump tank, everything else can also be at ground level with the drains. So if I wanted to, I could actually have that water pouring in the top of these and have the water level just non-existent in these barrels, almost as if it was aeroponics in gravel, and just have it draining straight into a sump tank somewhere. And also for the sump tank here, I'm probably going to go to Tractor Supply at some point and get one of their float valves for their stock tanks and set this to autofill with rainwater. So that'll be great. I can go on vacation and not worry about this running low on water. I did oversize it too on purpose. This has probably, say, 75 gallons in here, and the only thing that affects the water going up and down would be the 2 55-gallon drum halves that I have in here, which, since they're full of gravel, they probably use 40% of their mass will be water, and then the rest of it's like gravel. So therefore I'll probably use how many gallons? Not many. And the rest of it, that means that it would take a while for all this water that's in this tank to evaporate to the point where it needs to be refilled. Right now I'm just using a 5-gallon bucket for one of my rain tanks on my back porch and bringing it and hand filling it every once in a while.